Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of Gridiron 2024. I am Ron Poniewasz, joined by Larry Kelly. Professor Larry Kelly is a member of the Luxembourg, Garbutt, Kelly & George law firm. He is the former Shenango varsity baseball coach and currently is the assistant baseball coach at Penn State Shenango. We welcome Larry aboard for another season here on Gridiron. Thank you, Larry, for joining us.
Well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I may be coming back as a volunteer at Newcastle basketball. You might have to add that to my moniker, to my list of I don't know what you would call them, jobs or avocations. But I'm fired up and ready to go, man. After watching my Hurricanes on Friday night, and football season's up and ready to roll, and so are we. The award-winning Gridiron.
That's right.
Okay. Did we win any awards last year?
Yeah, we got second place in Keystone, I believe it was. We covered it a few weeks ago when we last spoke.
All right. Yeah. So, I've come in second a lot. We need to be in that first place spot. So my man Pete got to stir to drink a little bit. My man he's the straw that stirs the drink. He got to start stirring a little more.
All right. For our season opening episode, we're going to tell you about a dual threat on offense that earned Athlete of the Week. We have several topics to go over on our middle segment, which we will call Talking Points. And in our final segment will be the schedule for Friday, September 6th. But first off, Larry, Mohawk High's junior, Bobby Fadden, 6'1" quarterback, 170 pounds. He's also a defensive back. Last week against Laurel, 12 carries, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns on runs of 78 and 15 yards. He was 7 of 14 through the air for 132 yards, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Again, Mohawk defeated Laurel last week, 32-27, to even its record at 1-1. Thoughts, Larry, on Bobby Fadden and what he's done this year?
Well, if I had $1 for every time we've said Bobby Fadden's name on this show, as well as our basketball podcast, I could retire from LGKG, man. I wouldn't have to go to work every day. This young man has been around he's been a stud since he was in 9th grade, both on the gridiron and on the basketball court. And so what he did last week shouldn't surprise anybody. Once again, he was playing wide receiver last year because Jay Rona was the QB. They moved Bobby into the quarterback position, and he was fantastic. 12 carries, 157 yards, and then 2 touchdowns. And then when you add to that another 132 yards through the air, that's a great night. And that was against Laurel, the Spartans, who's a pretty good defensive team year in and year out. So Bobby Fadden is the real deal. And listen, there were other choices last week, right? There were other choices. Gino Mazzocca out in Neshannock had an outstanding performance. Kyrell Harris, Nate McKnight, my guy Kayvon Gardner for the Red Hurricane had outstanding performances. So, Bobby's an excellent choice, but he was in good company last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mohawk going into camp this year, they had a quarterback competition. Bobby Fadden obviously won, and we were all wondering, okay, if he wins the quarterback competition, who's he throwing the ball to? Because he was quite a wide receiver. Conversely, if he doesn't win the wide receiver or doesn't win the quarterback job, who wins the quarterback job? And can they get the ball to him out in space? And I think they picked quite a quarterback there with Bobby Fadden. They haven't missed a beat.
Well, listen, the quarterback is like the point guard in basketball. When the game's on the line, you want the ball in his or her hands. And nobody touches the ball more in a high school football game than the quarterback. You want to put your best athlete there. You just do. And he's that. Bobby Fadden might be the best athlete in the county. He's the real deal, and so deserving of Athlete of the Week. And as I said, there were a lot of young men last week who had great weeks, but he's well-deserved. This is a well-deserved honor for him, and I'm certain this isn't the last time we're going to hear his name throughout the football season.
Coaches don't generally like things that sound like moral victories, but that first week when they lost to Neshannock, it was a high-scoring game, anybody's game. I think Mohawk had a fourth quarter lead, possibly going into the fourth quarter. But when you don't have when you don't know what you got at quarterback going in, and you're thinking, okay, we picked the right guy. Let's see what we have. Despite the loss, you have to be thinking. You have to be feeling pretty good about your team after that game.
Well, Neshannock's the real deal too. They're going to be good. There have been predictions that they might go all the way this year, and Mohawk held their own in a week 0 game, which is probably the most unpredictable game of the season because of the fact that you just haven't really taken real snaps in the stadium, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. But listen, when you got Bobby Fadden at the controls, I like my chances of winning every game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, that's Athlete of the Week. Our second Athlete of the Week this season, Dom Cubelis, was our Athlete of the Week for Week 1. Neshannock High's Dom Cubelis. Congratulations to Bobby Fadden this week, and again to Dom Cubelis last week. And we have our talking points, and that's coming up next, right here on Gridiron.
There's one thing I learned growing up around here. People should look out for each other. Be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.
Hey, we're back, everybody, and this is our Talking Points segment. First up, I would like to pass along condolences and sympathies to the Graham family. Jimmy Graham's son, DJ Graham, passed away about a week and a half ago as we filmed this Monday night. And Shenango's football game last week against Elwood City Lincoln was canceled. DJ Graham was a baseball player, and as I mentioned, in addition to golf as well. And as I mentioned, as we were leading into Athlete of the Week, Larry Kelly used to be the Shenango varsity baseball coach. So DJ Graham played for Larry Kelly. Larry, what can you say regarding DJ Graham?
What a great young man from a great family. His father, Jimmy, as we know, is the football coach. His mother is Sarah Graham. They're wonderful people, good and loving family. I went to the viewing on Monday, and what do you say to parents that lost a child other than my heart aches for you? And I really don't have any words probably that could comfort you at this time. Only to say, if you need anything, when I coached high school baseball at Neshannock, at Shenango, my motto was count on me. I always wanted players that I could count on. And DJ was one of those guys. He was a ninth grader. And as a ninth grader in a really good baseball program, which is what we had at Shenango, they're not going to get a lot of playing time. But I could always count on DJ, as a pinch runner. I used him a lot because he was smart and he was tough and he had good instincts. And he was a fine young man. And, as a community, not just in Shenango, but throughout Lawrence County, I think it was rather obvious as to what kind of a community we have and we are, because the outpouring of support to that family was overwhelming. And just like I was looking for players that I could count on, you know, the Grahams are now, that family is in a position that, you know, they need a community that they can count on to support them and to comfort them. And I think they have that, not only at Neshannock, but throughout Lawrence County. The outpouring of support and condolences and well wishes for that family, as I said, was overwhelming. And I told them if they ever need anything, you know, they can count on me. You know, if they're going to have some type of charitable, you know, scholarship fundraiser in his name, I want to be the first call, because I will be there to support it. Because they're just good people who are really experiencing a really, really tough time right now.
Absolutely. Again, we would like to send our deepest sympathies and condolences to the Graham family and the Neshannock community in this very tough and difficult time. And it's going to be really tough for Coach Graham to, you know, to go on as coach. It sounds like he's going to continue being the coach, but possibly, you know, getting back to some semblance of normalcy will help him along the way, you know, to cope a little bit, Larry.
I'm sure. You know, Jimmy was a tremendous athlete in more than one sport. And he's a mentally tough guy. And he's going to need to be mentally tough. And I think being around his team, which is his extended family, will help him to move forward.
Okay, our next topic that we have on the docket will be, let's talk about Neshannock and Newcastle. They're both 2-0 under first-year head coaches, Michael Bonjavingo at Neshannock and Fred Mazzocco at Newcastle. They're both Newcastle guys. Michael Bonjavingo was a star quarterback for the Red Hurricane years ago, and Fred is a Newcastle graduate. 2-0, very impressive. Larry, just your thoughts on what you have observed.
I don't think anybody's surprised that Neshannock is 2-0, because they're really good, and they have a lot of returning players, including Dom Cabellas, who you mentioned, just was our athlete of the week. He's a tremendous athlete, and he might be a better baseball player than he is a football player, and he's a really good football player. Lou Parada's son, which I think is also Lou, was the lineman of the week I saw. Do I have that right?
It's Tony Parada, right?
Tony, yeah. Louis' son, Tony, he's a tremendous player, and his father was an All-American at Westminster. So when you got guys like Tony blocking, and you got guys like Dom Cabellas and Gino Mazzocco, you know, running the show and catching the passes, everybody knew they were going to be good. But I'm going to tell you something. I went and watched the Red Hurricane on Friday night, and I was impressed. You know, that program has struggled mightily in the last couple of years. But I know Fred Mazzocco. He's a Newcastle guy. I know him personally. He's a tough guy. He's a smart guy. And, you know, he's been working with these young men now for almost 9 months. And what I saw Friday night impressed me. Kyrell Harris, the quarterback, made so many, not just great throws, but great decisions, which is what you want out of your cornerback. Nate McKnight made 2 or 3 fabulous catches for touchdowns and runs after he caught the ball. Kayvon Gardner, one of the toughest guys I ever coached, because I had him. Another kid that's really smart and tough, and Amir Akins had a touchdown run. I had him too. You know, this is the last group that I actually coached. I had all of those guys that I just mentioned. And so I'm pulling for them hard. Freddie's doing a great job. and they looked really good against a good football team, Hopewell. I was impressed. I was impressed, and we'll learn a little more this Friday night because they have Highlands. But like I said, I don't think anybody's too surprised that Neshannock's 2-0, but the Red Hurricane haven't been 2-0 in, I don't know, 6-7 years. I think I read in the paper. So, yeah, that's a great start, and I'm anxious to see what happens on Friday.
Union Scotty's elected to play a second scrimmage, Larry, when other teams are playing one scrimmage and getting into the season. It's got to be difficult finding, a quote unquote dance partner for that second scrimmage when everybody else is practically playing one scrimmage and getting right into the season.
It probably is, but I'm not going to second guess Coach Niebala. Are you? He has a really young team. Lost a lot of tremendous players through graduation, and he probably feels that, they need more of a controlled scrimmage, which allows more teaching to go on and coaching, to get his guys ready to play when it counts. So, yeah, I think, I'm not going to second guess the coach. And you're right, not everybody does it. In fact, very few do it. But with a young team, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I posed that question to Coach Niedballa last week when I called him for the previews. I asked him what was the decision, what went into that and things like that. And he said, as probably as long as I'm going to be at Union, we're going to elect to play a second scrimmage. So that's how it looks as though it's going to shake down for Union in that regard. One team that I can remember playing two scrimmages is Riverside, and they went right into, week one. Other people call it week 0. I think that's ridiculous, but, be that as it may. Week 1, Riverside went into that. So you lost the team that played a second scrimmage, but you gained one by adding Union.
And again, I think it's, based upon the experience of the players that you have coming back. If you have an experienced team, then, hey, one scrimmage is probably enough. Mm-hmm. But if you have young players and an inexperienced team, you want to coach them up and you want to be on the field, stopping plays right after they happen to make your coaching points. I think it's a good idea. Hey, for years and years, everybody had two scrimmages. It just changed, 4 or 5 years ago?
Something like that. And then up to this thing called week 0, which sounds about as ridiculous as what it is. It's either week 1 or it's not. It's week 1. Where this week 0 thing came from is stupid, and people that actually say week 0 sound about as stupid as the whole principle of 0.
Tell us how you really feel about that, because I'm having a hard time figuring out. Listen, there are certain things through the year that push you just like whoop right over the edge.
And that is one of them.
And this is one of them.
Yep.
Push you like right over the edge. Like you get to the edge and then there you go. Whoop, yep. Over the edge. And week 0 pushes you over the edge. I know it does. And I don't care what you call it, you either win or you lose. At the end of the day, your record's either 1-0 or 0-1. So, week 0. Okay.
All right. Larry, this will be our first test. Let's see how well we're going to get along this year on Gridiron. Our last topic, if you notice on your itinerary that I sent you, Kennedy Catholic is coached by Newcastle graduate Julian Cox. They lost to Cambridge Springs in the season opener, 67-0. In that game, Kennedy Catholic had just 12 players suit up. They had another kid that was suspended for an infraction last year. I think whatever it was, he got kicked out of a game, so he has to sit out 2 games. That was one. Last week they were off, and I'm not sure if they had a game get canceled or what the reason was, but in any event, they didn't play last week. Now, Larry, here's the question I posed to you. I saw this on Bob Greenberg's Twitter page, I believe is where it was. PIAA Executive Director and NFHS President Bob Lombardi had this to say regarding number of players suiting up. Quote, "This is not a one-size-fits-all response. This is to be determined by each school administration and their team physician/medical staff, period," close quote. Your thoughts? Do you agree with the quote unquote, "this is not a one-size-fits-all response"?
I know Bob Lombardi. I know him personally, and he knows me. And we've had a few battles through the years on eligibility issues, and we also have had a difference of opinion on whether or not the private Catholic and charter schools, non-boundary schools, should be playing in their own bracket when you get to the state playoffs. But I tend to agree with him on this issue. I mean, look, do I think 12 players is enough to play a football game and to have a team? No, I don't. It's probably not enough. However, first and foremost, the health of the student athlete has to be at the forefront. And if the school administration and the team doctors feel that, these young men are not in danger by playing because they're playing both ways. And what if two guys get hurt in one game? Now what? You're going to play with 10? Are they going to call the game? I think it is up to the school. One size does not fit all. And it's probably up to the school to determine whether or not, they can field and should field a team. 67-0. That's a one-sided contest. And I would suspect that with only 12 players, it's probably not going to get much better as the season progresses.
Wilmington has a Saturday afternoon game against Kennedy Catholic coming up here in a few weeks.
Wow.
Strangely enough, they play Kennedy Catholic on a Saturday, and then the very next week they play Farrell. So talk about two opposite ends of the spectrum for Wilmington. You never want to, tell somebody, hey, you're going to win real big, in this game. But in theory, you've got a game that you should, by rights, it might look like 67-0 against Kennedy in that game, and then the very next game, boy, you're stepping right up in class, and you're going head to head against a state power.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to beat Kennedy Catholic. We know that. Wilmington's pretty good this year, even though they lost Chase Mitchelltree, who's a stud. He's the real deal, and I understand he broke a bone in his foot, and he's going to be out for a while, and that's going to hurt them because he had a really big first week for the Greyhounds and then didn't play. Well, I don't know how much he played last week, and the Greyhounds end up losing. But you're right; they're going to beat Kennedy Catholic, and it'll be a mercy rule game probably before too long, before the half is over. And then you got to play Farrell. You got to put, as I used to tell my guys, every once in a while you got to put your big boy pants on. And when you play the Farrell Steelers, you better have your big boy pants on. But look, I think Wilmington feels pretty good about themselves, and that'll be a litmus test. Every once in a while, we used to call them statement games when it's time to step up, put your big boy pants on, and make a statement. And that's going to happen for the Greyhounds in the next couple of weeks.
Well, you like to be good cop. Apparently, I'm going to be bad cop because that's what I do.
That's what you do. You're really good at it, too.
Good
thing you're not married, because you'd be a miserable spouse. You'd be mad all the time. You'd be starting fights. That's what you like to do. My goodness gracious. I got to get you some happy pills.
I could not do it. I've been around divorce with my family quite a bit. And I swore it off back in high school. I said, ain't no way I'm married. Ain't no way.
Well, it's obvious. You made the right decision. And you don't make too many good decisions, but for you, that's a good one. So, all right. So tell me why you're mad now. What are you mad about now?
I do think it's a one-size-fits-all response because, you need 11 players on the field to actually play. I don't care if you're talking Class 1A or Class 6A. I'm thinking going into a game, healthy players suited up for a game, you should have no less than 18. And I don't care if you're a 1A school or a 6A school, 18 is 18, whether you're 1A or 6A. One size fits all.
Well, I suggest you get on a phone and call Bob Lombardi. reasonable man. Maybe after a discussion with you, he'll change his mind and shut the season down at Kennedy Catholic. But it seems to me that when the Union Scotties won the Whitfield Championship like 2 years ago, they only had like 19 or 20 kids on the roster. And out of those 19 or 20, there was only about 12 or 13 that got regular playing time. So, you can do it with small numbers, but you better have special athletes. But, look, 12 is cutting it thin. What if you have 2 players get hurt in a game? What do you do? The game
Right.
get called? You play with 10? I don't think so. I know in basketball, if you foul out so many people, you can finish with 4. I'm not so sure that you can do that in football.
Yeah. So again, you're kind of saying that, you can't go into a game with 12 because what happens on the kickoff and a kid gets his leg broke. Now you're down to 11. Third play of the game, somebody tears his Achilles. Okay, now you're down to 10 and you've got essentially 4 quarters left. Injuries happen. It's a physical sport.
Oh, no, I've always said, in basketball, you need 6 or 7, because that's normally your rotation. In football, you need 26 or 27 because you're right. Young men get hurt. It's hard to go both ways, even though a lot of young men do. But, it's hard, especially on the offensive and defensive lines to stay fresh. It's tough. And, I don't know how they're going to continue with 12 young men because sooner or later, a couple guys are getting hurt. And then what?
Yeah. Back in Ohio, near my essentially my original hometown, Southington, Ohio. I guess they call it Chalker High School now, but I still call it Southington High School. They've went to 8-man football, so they can compete. Shouldn't Kennedy Catholic possibly look into something like that? They revived the program, and okay, it's a success from that standpoint. You've revived the program. This is, I believe, your 2nd or 3rd year back. You're still trying to grow the program, but maybe let's see them drop it down to an 8-man team or something.
You know what? You don't have a lot of good ideas. You really don't. But this is one. Because I know, and I want to say in the Dakotas, don't they play 8-man football in high school? That's kind of the thing. Now, the question is, can you find a lot of teams that are willing to play 8-man football? Maybe you could. If your athletic director went out and beat the bushes, he could probably find you 8-10 games, and that's probably a good idea. And truth be told, even if you played the other schools' JV teams, give me your JV team. Let's play an 8-man game. Because a lot of summer camps are 7-on-7. So the kids are used to it. You could schedule 7-on-7 games against teams JVs because look, football's a tough sport, my man. And if you're going to get beat 67-0 every game, it's not only tough, it's not fun, and it's probably going to get dangerous because you're going to get physically dominated. So, there's a lot of questions to be answered here. There really. Yeah.
And last Saturday, I don't know if Southington has lights now or not. I know back, when I was a kid and even working in Warren, they did not have lights, but maybe they've installed lights. But Saturday afternoon, they hosted a team from Maryland. So that kind of tells you how many schools are around or whatever. Does Kennedy Catholic want to get invested in those kind of halls? Those kind of.
No, you don't want to do that. Not at the high school level because it costs a lot of money to transport a team. So, a 7-on-7 game or an 8-man football, whatever the number is, might make sense at least until they get the program up and running and you get more kids excited to play. The one thing that was impressive about Newcastle, I think I saw 40 kids dressed on the sideline, maybe more, maybe 50. And that hasn't happened at Newcastle in a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Final segment is coming up next, and that'll be our scheduled portion, so don't go away.
I became an attorney because I believe in hard work, fairness, and human decency. In a word, justice. My workers' compensation clients deserve justice. because in an instant, their hard work turns into hard times when they get hurt on the job. No doubt, life is tough, but so am I. I've been fighting all my life, and I'll keep fighting for you. I'm Joe George, and here in Lawrence County, it's personal.
We're back with you here on our schedule segment, and with a light twist of the arm, Larry would like us to actually pick the games rather than just say who's playing. So first off...
Oh, no, wait a minute. Little background here. It used to be many, many years ago when I was at the Newcastle News, we picked them and we put them in the paper, on the Friday paper. And if my memory serves me correctly, I held the record, the prognosticating record, for about 25 years until Kayleen finally got me. I think it took her 25 years to get me, but she did, and she broke my record. So you're the underdog here. You understand? You're going to be the underdog, but we're going to keep track here. And at the end of the season, maybe we'll even hand out a trophy. Maybe the director of our cruise ship, Pete Sirianni, get a little trophy, and we'll make a presentation on the last week of the season. And if you want to place a little wager, because I know you like to bet, you like to get down, maybe we can even place a little wager on this.
You know, do you know the name AJ Petruzzi?
I do not.
He's a pro wrestler, and his gimmick is patting himself on the shoulder. I know you like to injure yourself playing baseball, sliding into bases. Have you ever injured yourself patting yourself on the back?
Oh, no. Listen, the facts are the facts. I'm just pointing it out to you because I don't want you to get too full of yourself. I mean, you're the sports editor of the Newcastle News. I never really ascended to that position. But when it came to picking winners, maybe you should contact me before you place your bets on the weekend. I might be able to help you. But we're going to find out. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And here we go. Highlands and Newcastle. Who do you got?
I had a pretty good week, 5-1. It might have been Barry Horowitz, actually, who's who I was thinking of. But Highlands is 1-1 at Newcastle, 2-0. Larry Kelly, did you know Highlands, in that 1-1 record, lost the opener 38-37 in overtime? Last week, they won 53-52, and I believe triple overtime. They know how to score, they know how to give up a lot of points, and they know how to play extra football. But they don't know what it's like playing against Newcastle and all this speed. I got the Canes, Larry.
Wow. Well, I do too. And listen, that isn't a homer pick. It's not a homer pick. They made me a believer last week. I'm telling you, I've watched so many games at Taggart Stadium. But Freddie Moe, my man, got it going here. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a high-scoring game. We know this. But like Freddie Moe said, he can score from any point on the field. And I like what I saw. So I got the Canes, too. So there we go.
There are a lot of
first.
Yeah, there are a lot.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun to watch, and they're having a lot of fun on the field playing. That's for sure.
All right, I pick next. Elwood City at Neshannock. If this game was at Elwood, I'd pick the Wolverines because I think that Elijah Palmer McCain is special. I think that young man is special. He may be the best running back in the county, and that's saying something because there's a lot of good ones in this county. But the game's at Neshannock, and there's an advantage to playing at home. So I expect the Lancers to go 3-0. So I'm picking Neshannock.
Elijah Palmer McCain is now the program all-time rushing leader at Elwood City. He rushed for 145 yards on 23 carries with 2 touchdowns in that 14-7 overtime win against Laurel in the season opener. How do you pick against Neshannock? I can't, I won't, and I'm not going to. However, this is going to be, as you mentioned, it's going to be a high-scoring game because Neshannock knows how to put points on the board, and they've played 2 games, and they've allowed a lot of points, too. So, but I also have Neshannock.
Well, listen, again, Elwood City likes to run the ball. Coach Philip Steiner does a great job, and he has a horse in Elijah Palmer McCain. And if they can control the ground game, control the clock, this game's going to be close. It really is. And as I said, I'm picking Neshannock because they're the home team.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mohawk is up next, 1-1 at Shenango, which is 0-1. As we touched on earlier with the passing of DJ Graham, this is Shenango's first game since a season-opening 9-7 home loss to New Brighton. It's going to be an awful lot of emotions at Shenango, Larry. That's going to be there's probably going to be stuff pre-game and things like that. Mohawk's on a roll. They battled Neshannock in that first game, high-scoring game, and then last week they found a way to get it done late against Laurel. I'll take Mohawk, go 2-1. I got the Warriors to win.
Yeah, so do I, Ronnie. It's going to be tough for Shenango. There's going to be a lot of emotion. They have some athletes on that team. Sammy Patton, their quarterback. I coached him. That kid's a tough dude, man. He's a really, really good athlete. Will be a lot of emotion. You're right, but I think Mohawk's just a little too strong. You know what I mean? They have a little too many weapons, and I have Mohawk also.
Okay.
Next, Riverside and Laurel. That's my pick. Now, I have a little affinity for Riverside because I sent 4 daughters to school there. And those kids are tough. They really, really are. And this is another game that if the game was at Riverside, I'd probably pick them. But I got Laurel. They're playing at home. They played a really, really good game against Mohawk last week. Took it down to the last quarter. I got the Spartans to win their first game of the year.
Yeah, I like Laurel as well. This is a team that is 0-2. However, they could be 2-0. They lost 14-7 in overtime, and then they lost that shootout last week to Mohawk 32-27, where they led late in the game. Again, 2-0, 0-2, 1-1. They could have any record you name. Certainly, there are no moral victories, but this is going to do a lot for Laurel. Find a way to win, and then get ready for conference play, which is coming up, quicker than you can imagine. So we both like Laurel in this game. Okay, Union 0-1 at Washington, which is 1-1. Scotty's going down the road, going down 79. It's a long ways to go, Larry.
That's a long bus trip on a school bus. It's about an hour and a half on a school bus. And it's hard to do and get out of the bus and play a football game. But go ahead, you're picking first.
I don't know. Do you think Union's going to stop by the Pattison household and possibly stop in for a pool party on the way to the game?
Well, when I was an athlete, they never allowed us to swim on game day. So if they stop, it's probably going to be on the way home. I don't think Coach Nibal is going to let his kids jump in the swimming pool before the game.
I'll take Washington in this game.
I do. Me too. Only because an hour and a half on a school bus is a long ride. And Washington normally is a formidable opponent. So we both got the same team. We're thinking alike here. Now, North Bedford County at Wilmington. I have no idea where North Bedford County is. Is it in Bedford, PA? Is it literally 2.5 hours away?
It's billed as Loysburg, Pennsylvania, and it's in the Altoona Mirrors coverage area. So that tells you a little bit about where the game, where Northern Bedford County hails from a little bit.
Well, they got a 2-hour bus ride then. They just do. And I don't know how good or bad they are, but I like Wilmington this year, notwithstanding the fact, as I said, Chase Mitchell-Tree is probably not going to play. They run the ball. They're well coached. They're playing at home. North Bedford County is going to be on the road for 2 hours. I got the Greyhounds.
Back when the Steelers were at the height of their glory days, Larry, that we're talking in the 1970s. Remember what network carried a lot of their games? Who carried AFC games?
the AFC games were carried by NBC, not CBS at the time.
What is Northern Bedford County's abbreviation or their letters?
NBC.
I'm taking NBC.
All right, good. I'm going to call Coach Philly and tell him you just picked against his team. I'm going to point that out to him. That way, when you call him for a pregame comment, he'll have something to say. But I'm glad. Listen, I don't want our viewers to think that we pick all the same teams. So I'm glad. I'm glad you picked North Bedford County. I want you to. And then when Wilmington beats them next week, maybe we'll invite Coach Phillips, Philly, to come on our program and just make a little comment. Maybe we'll get on for little post game with him.
Yeah. Hey, Wilmington last week, they lost to Hubbard, Ohio, 39-7. And there's no shame in that because Hubbard's traditionally a good team. In Ohio, they have 6 divisions as well, but theirs is called divisions, not classifications. And whereas in Pennsylvania, Class 1A, like a union, is the smallest classification you can have. In Ohio, Division 1 is the biggest classification you can have. And I believe, I don't know this for sure, I'm just kind of throwing a guess. I think Hubbard's somewhere in the middle, like a Division 3 or a Division 4. So Wilmington really played up last week against a really good team. They lost 39-7. You might say, oh, they got blown out or whatever. Hey, they saw good competition. That's going to help them for when they play Farrell, in a few weeks.
Yeah. And again, I'm sure this Bedford team's pretty good. But you just don't know. But they're on a bus for 2 hours. And, I always like Wilmington at home. They'll come to play. They're going to be tough.
Right. Okay. So, Larry, we agree on everything except Northern Bedford County, 2-0 at Wilmington, 1-1 on Friday night.
Okay. Well, so one of us, we don't know. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 games. I'll probably be 6-0. You'll probably be 5-1, but that's okay. It's like being second to Willie Mays. There's no shame in that. Second place won't be bad for you.
Hey, you know what? I'd like to see Wilmington win that game because, they're in our coverage area. Brandon Fillion's a great guy, a great coach. He's great to talk to. We're a fan of Brandon Fillion and his program. Certainly root for him and all the best from his team.
All right. Well, you picked against him, and I'm going to call him tomorrow. I'm going to let him know. I have his phone number. I'm going to send him a text saying your boy Poniewasz picked the visitors against you on Friday, and just to see what he says.
Okay. So can I do the same with Dan Bradley and Jimmy Graham and who else? Who else can we do that with?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I do.
So. It works,
All right, my brother. Sounds good. It was a great Friday night last week. It being at the great weekend, a little bit of nip in the air. Wearing a little sweater to the game. It's fall football early in the season is a lot of fun for a lot of reasons.
Right. Okay, and don't forget to check out my weekly picks that we've been doing. We started them last week. I went 5-1. Only loss I had was I took Villanova to cover the 11-point spot against Youngstown State. Villanova won 24-17 after leading 24-3. So Youngstown State got me on a late backdoor cover. However, I did win a couple games in that same regard, getting late covers. So we're looking forward to another 6 games to pick. I do have an upset special, Larry. So you're going to have to check that one out. And
listen, 5-1 against the spread is pretty. That's pretty good stuff. It's pretty good stuff. I might have to start betting football again.
Well, one of them was I took Neshannock against Mohawk, so there was no spread in that one. So over college games, I was 4-1.
Not too bad. That's just pretty good. That's a pretty good run.
Yeah. So, and again, I have an upset special this week. You're going to want to check it out. I'm very high on this game, invested quite a bit. I'm going to continue to be invested on it. as we draw closer to
All right,
kickoff.
well, I'll be looking for it. What day in the paper do you run this stuff?
Pete puts it on Twitter, so it'll be up at some point this week. 6 games, one will be high school, and then 5 other games.
All right, sounds like a plan.
Get your bank rolls ready because we're gonna add some money to it.
All right, listen. If you go 5-1 again this week, there'll be a lot of smiling faces in Lawrence County.
Yeah, notice the smile I got working after that.
Yeah, I noticed. I got you.
All right, Larry.
Man. Sounds good. We'll talk again next week.
Great seeing you back, Larry. Welcome aboard for another great season, and thank you everybody for watching us. Enjoy the games Friday night. We'll be back next week right here on Gridiron.